Hi, I'm Jasmine. I've been a coach with Speaking Schools Australasia for about 1.5 years now, and I have been doing public speaking since I was in Year 5. When I was in Year 5, I was a bit more of a shy kid. I was really good at English, so I knew that I had the ability to express myself and write complex arguments with really good structure, but I still didn't have that ability to properly communicate and engage with an audience. So my parents thought, you know what, let's just put her into public speaking. I did a gala day in Year 5. Wasn't that great. I could write the speech, but it was more about the delivery of it, which wasn't the best. But I thought, you know what, this is something that was probably really important to my growth and development, that I would be using public speaking in my life generally and also in school. So I really wanted to stick through and stay in debating, and I did, and I kept doing debating all the way throughout high school, all the way up into Year 12, where I eventually became the public speaking and debating captain of my school. And it was something that I think was really important in my personal development. It gave me so much confidence just in the way I communicate with my friends, the way I engage with my teachers. This has obviously helped me as I've gone to university, when I went into my law degree, and it just means that I now have the ability to advocate for what I believe in, and also just generally in conversation that I can be more assertive and also just be more myself rather than having to hide that. So I think public speaking has been a really big part of my life. I'm really grateful that I got into it in the first place, and I find it incredibly rewarding that I'm able to do it as a job. I think public speaking is just fun in the way that I get to stand in front of a crowd and I get to actually engage with them. Because when you're doing things like debating, obviously you're going to be sometimes arguing for very complex, interesting cases, some stuff you don't personally believe in, but being able to come together with a team, construct a case, and actually present that to an audience and see on their faces in real time how they respond and react to what you're saying is incredibly a rewarding experience to do. And I just find it a fun little challenge, because I like doing public speaking, I like communicating to people, but things like debating actually adds that extra layer of intellectual challenge, which I really enjoy. That is a tough question. It's so hard to pick, because debating is one of the loves of my life. I'm glad I found it in high school. Probably rebuttal, honestly. Rebuttal is something that is quite challenging, because when you're sitting there and listening to what your other team is saying, oftentimes you are agreeing with them, and it's just sometimes quite difficult to be able to actually pinpoint what part of their argument you can deconstruct and argue against. So the fact that rebuttal is something that I actually personally struggle with in debating, and something I could constantly work on, something I actually enjoyed as I saw myself slowly going from somebody who started off as the 4th speaker who really wouldn't speak, to eventually by the end of school being the 3rd speaker, who would find great enjoyment actually completely taking down another team's case. That was part of my favorite part of my journey in debating. Yeah. I cannot advocate enough for how important debating and public speaking is, because people often assume that the lessons that you learn from debating only apply to debating in those kind of contexts. But in school, you are constantly having to, when you're raising your hand, you are asking your teacher a question, you are utilizing that confidence and public speaking ability. When you are doing presentations in class, where you're, having to answer questions in a Q&A type thing, or, when you're just, recording a video of yourself for an assignment. These are all times where all the skills you learn in public speaking debating are going to be put into effect. And also just more generally, when you're writing English essays, when you're going into HSC and having to quite quickly on the spot come up with essay arguments, the skills that you learn debating, how you actually structure your speeches, are something that's going to be put to the test every single day of your school life. So I cannot encourage people enough to actually get involved in debating, even if you don't think that you're going to, be a debater for the rest of your life. Me personally, as a law student, obviously being able to advocate for a particular point of view is inherent to the degree structure, but also just more generally at university, you are coming into contact with a lot of different people. So that involves you kind of having to be more assertive, have to step out of your comfort zone and talk to different people. Also just generally you're having to be a lot more independent at university. So that does involve you having to, ask your lecturer questions. It does involve you taking a lot more of an active step in your learning. I think debating teaches you that kind of confidence, which you're going to need in certain degrees. And also just generally when you're being an adult, even once you've left university, when you're doing university like kind of level interviews, when you want internships, when you want to go for a job, being able to do public speaking is actually something that recruiters are looking for. They want you to be able to connect with them emotionally. They want to see that you're somebody that is passionate. These are all things that you learn when you're in year 6, standing in front of the class, doing your first debate, because you're being able to advocate for a position on whether uniforms should be compulsory. By the time you get to, when you're in your 20s and having to argue why you should be hired, those same skills are being applied. So cannot recommend enough. Honestly, I think I've used my debating experience in a lot of job interviews. When I got hired by Speaking Schools Australia, for example, also other times when I've gone for roles like as part of my law degree, being able to say, look, I started off when I was younger, being not really able to communicate, and now I've worked at it, I've improved those skills. Like debating was actually an example I used to show that even though I had a challenge when I was younger, when I was a shyer child, and now I'm able to do this, like debating is something that actually, is something I can constantly use to show that with hard work and with determination, these kind of tactical skills that you need in the workplace can be improved. So debating has been, something I've drawn on a lot in those kinds of situations to show, look, I'm a hard worker, I will do my best, and I will improve on the things that I'm, not the strongest in. Well, there are times where I have made my opposition cry, not for being rude, just because I've been like very tactical in taking down arguments, but I won't say that. I think probably when I actually got into representative debating for the Archdale competition, it was probably a moment where I will never forget it, because I remember that season had been probably my best season in Archdale, that I had been like told by multiple adjudicators, you should really go for reps. And I'd never in my life thought this was a possibility. Like I was always the one who would watch the other kids get up from debating and go, wow, like I'm really impressed. I wish I could be that person. And then to be told that multiple times, I thought, wow, maybe I actually could do this. I went to the tryouts again. I had a lot of self-doubt, thinking, oh, I'm not as good as these people. My arguments aren't as good. But all I literally did was communicated to my audience really well and effectively. I used my hand gestures, I used my kind of passionate tone that I usually speak with, and then I got the call and I remember just crying, because I was like remembering that little version of me who couldn't even string 2 words together in front of her class, now going to like being a representative debater was probably a very proud moment for me, and it just really showed my journey and how all that hard work had actually led to somewhere. So it was a very satisfying moment. Yeah. Seeing the growth in the kids. Like sometimes I have kids who their parents bring them to class, and the parents will let me know that she's, maybe she's quite quiet, that it would be great if you could just give her some extra encouragement, ask questions of her, and when she gives you good answers, could you please just let her know so that she can slowly begin to open up. And often they don't really want to talk, and they're kind of sitting there quietly. And I know this is somebody I have to put a lot of effort into. And then over the course of the term, when you see them start to actually want to raise their hand rather than me having to call upon them, or seeing them, slowly start to look up from the palm cards a little bit more after every class. And then by the end, when we do parent presentations and their parents are actually in the audience looking at them and watching them, the kid looks up, sees their parents, and the smile comes across their face. And I remember what that kid looked like when they first came to class, and seeing the smiles on the parents' faces. That is something which I love doing as a coach, and I'm glad that I get to do that every term with new kids. It's really exciting. I think it's kind of about tailoring your style to the kids. What I like to do is, my first class with them, I get to know them. I often do an icebreaker where I work out what does each kid like. Just because when you often go to a new class, your students aren't really trusting of you. They're kind of still trying to work out, what is this teacher about? Do I actually want to be here? Am I enjoying myself? And once you get over that initial roadblock, when you start to show them, I actually care about you, I want to learn about you, and you want to learn from me, so we have that kind of reciprocal almost relationship. Once you get through that, then they will start trying harder in class, then they will actually be more likely to pay attention, be more likely to be, respectful and well-behaved. So I think building those early bonds, working out what works for certain students, like whether I should be doing diagrams, whether I should be, giving like real world examples or like, showing them how to do it versus me just simply telling them how to do it. These are all things that I will try to learn in the early stages of the class. And then once that happens, then the real teaching can begin. The students can actually start enjoying themselves and learning in the best way possible. That I don't know everything. I think I started going, okay, well, I am the expert. I've done debating for a number of years. I'm the one who's going to be teaching these kids. By the end, I often learn that the kids have a lot to teach me. Sometimes I have some challenging students that make me really reevaluate my teaching style, where I go, okay, I need to learn to adapt to new environments. I need to adapt to new different types of students who have certain needs. Some students have maybe things like learning disabilities or specific things that they want to work on. So I will adapt to them. So the kids have actually taught me a lot about how I actually engage with my students, ways that are more or less effective at teaching certain concepts. So then every class, I think I learn something different that I will hopefully take to my next class. Yeah. I have loved my time at Speaking Schools Australasia, and that is for a number of reasons. First, I think the flexibility is fantastic. As a university student, being able to decide kind of what days, what hours you work is quite helpful. Also just being able to take up missed shifts here and there. If I haven't committed myself to a class, but one day I do have a day off and someone needs a helping hand and I want to, step in, that's a really great option for me. Also just generally the kids I get to meet are wonderful. I've made so many adorable little friends in my classes, and they bring me such joy when I get to see them every week. And also working as a debating coach, doing that consistently year after year and seeing their progress. This is a job that has been quite fun work for me. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like work when I go there. When I do debatings on Friday afternoons and Tuesday afternoons, it's just as if I was going to play a sport game or going to see my friends. And I think that's kind of the work you want to do, is work that you, when you want to have to go to work, you're actually excited to go to work. And that's what I am. The first thing is probably firstly to I'd talk with the parents first, probably get an understanding of where that nervousness comes from, because sometimes we have kids where they've maybe been with a coach for the last year or two, they've developed a really strong bond, and then when I come in, they're nervous because they don't really know me, they don't trust me. And then in those kind of situations, it's all about building that bond up, learning about them, asking them questions, just little things. I'll learn, oh, you like Minecraft? Okay, I'll keep a note of that. I'll make sure to bring that sort of stuff up so you know that I actually care about you. I don't just see you as another student. If it's something along the lines of maybe they're not confident, then it's about positive reinforcement, constantly saying, that's a great job, or you did really well in, eye contact this week. So it depends entirely on where that kid is getting that nervousness from. And if I learn that from the parents, or if I kind of get a sense of that from the child, then I can actually target them in a certain way, how I'm actually delivering my lessons and things like that. Definitely manner, because I am a firm believer in no matter what you say, if you don't say it in a certain way, your audience is far less likely to give you credit for those ideas. I constantly watch debates where kids have incredible structure, incredibly nuanced arguments, but if their heads are down the entire time, or if they're speaking quite quietly, or if their body language is very focused inward rather than outward, then it means that I'm not giving them as much credit as I would if they were using hand gestures and being very open. So what I always tell my kids when I'm coaching them is that you want to kind of think of debating or public speaking like a conversation. The way that you talk with your friends, or often the way that they talk to me, they often will exude this kind of confidence and passion, which gets me excited in what they have to say. But then the second they get up to do their speeches, then suddenly all that disappears, and it's like I'm seeing a different kid. So it's all about making sure that you see your audience as someone that you have to communicate and engage with so that you get excited to talk about them, and then they will in turn get excited about what you have to say. So then your speech becomes 10 times more impactful. Not to be so scared. Like, I think when you are nervous, that often comes across, and when you're looking at your audience, if they kind of see someone who is scared, then they will not react in the way that you want them to react. Then it's just like a never-ending cycle. If you look up and they look concerned, then you get all self-conscious, and then you start falling into this spiral, and then you end up not having a great speech. But really, you shouldn't be looking to your audience necessarily for that confidence. You should get up there knowing, I know what I'm talking about, I care about what I'm talking about, and I'm gonna make my audience care about what I'm talking about. So then you're kind of actually boosting yourself up, because often kids will kind of look at their audience, look and see unfamiliar faces and get all terrified, when it's really, you don't even have to look at your audience. You look at the back wall, you look to yourself to find, I actually genuinely do know what I'm talking about, and I am excited to do this. And if you find that kind of confidence more from yourself rather than looking at, these audience full of, scared faces, it's actually a lot easier for you to develop that confidence and passion when you're speaking. Debating made me who I am because it showed me that I could, basically, the world was my oyster. Like when you're a young child in primary school and you don't have any friends, or you're kind of timid and you don't really have confidence in what you think or what you say, and that extends to being able to put your hand up in class and think you have a right answer. Smallest things like that is quite crippling at a young age. And I think when you start to do debating and then you realize, I can actually improve, I can get better. And then when you get to that stage where you can get up there in front of an audience and communicate your passions appropriately, then you start to have so much more confidence in other aspects of life. And that's how it really worked for me. When I got into debating, when I got into public speaking, slowly got more confident, that was able to kind of spread to different areas of my life in terms of my sports, my extracurriculars, just generally socially, academically, basically it benefited so many areas of my life, and those skills just kept on improving throughout high school and got me to where I am today. So debating was almost like part of the catalyst for so many changes in my life. And it was the same for many of my friends. So I think debating has really improved my confidence and my skills to get me to this point in my life.